Dana, young kid from Tennessee, put in World War II. When you were headed overseas, what did they tell you you guys were going to be doing?
Well, they didn't tell us what we were going to do until we were overseas. You see, they didn't tell us what we were going to do. I was in an engineer regiment, so we knew being in the engineers, we were going to work. See,
Right.
because we didn't have no fighting equipment at all. We wasn't going to fight, we were going to work. And they didn't tell us what was going to do, because they didn't know, I don't guess, until we got to England and they outlined what we had to do.
So when you were out there, what were the duties that you guys had to do? What were you doing?
What were we doing? We were putting prefab houses together to make a camp so the fighting forces could come over from the States to England to have some place to stay, have a house to stay in and all.
Now, were you ever apprised as to what was going on in the war while you were doing this? I mean, were you aware of what was happening?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Yes, yeah. We were told, and we could see what was going on, and we were told if something happened that we needed to know or something.
Were you guys ever in danger?
Well, now, that's hard to explain. Well, I tell you, we worked for the Marauder airplane landing strip, and the Germans tried to knock it out, and we were stationed over there because we made the landing strips and the takeoff strips. We kept that good for us. That's the only time that we were in danger, is the Germans come over trying to knock out this air base, and of course we were there close, and so when the air raid sailed to come, we went to the shelter, to air raid shelter, when they sounded the air raid, like that.
Yeah. Besides England, did they send you anywhere else?
Well, after the war.
After the war?
Yeah, when the war finished in Europe, they sent us to the Pacific. We was in the Philippine Island.
And you were doing the same thing there?
We would be, but nothing happened.
Right.
You see, we were getting ready. We were part of the invading forces that was going into Japan. But while we were sitting there, the Japanese surrendered, so we would just sit there in the Philippines, and that's where we deactivated, was in the Philippines.
You were in both theaters then? You were in the European theater and then the Pacific theater?
In the Pacific, yes.
How did they transport you across? Was it by ship or by plane?
By ship.
Yeah. How long did that take?
Oh, probably about 3 days from France. About 3 days from France.
Do you remember any stories in Europe of interest with any of of your guys or anything? Do you have any funny stories from when you were over there?
I don't know of any stories that I could tell you that you'd be interested in, tell you the truth.
How about the one about the tail?
Well,
you know that.
well, they don't want to know about that.
Yes, we do.
I know. When we first landed in Europe, I can't think of this little country that we landed in.
Okay.
But we got off the ship and went through the terminal, and the ladies was in there. They didn't call them Red Cross, but they served crumpets and tea to us. And of course, outside there was the military had a train there, so we had to get on the train and ride overnight from this port to England, to a little town in England, yeah. Well, we got off there, and that's where we had to wait until our equipment was unloaded from the ships so we could go to work and do what we wanted. And what she was talking about, it was this little town of Weem. We went there, so those people had never seen black people before. They, you know, when we walked down the street, they'd look at us, you know. They never seen no black people, no black people over there or nothing, you know. So the officers went downtown before we were allowed on past. They went downtown to look. So we don't know who, somebody, one of the officers or somebody told the people that we were part monkeys and our tail would come out at night. So not like that, see. So when we would walk downtown, people would look at us on the back, and we were wondering, what in the world are they looking at, you know, and everything. So it's just so happened that one of the sergeants, you know, beer halls are called pubs over there. So he went in and he made friends with the waitress, you know, somehow or another. So she started talking, and she started asking him about the tail. I said, what are you talking about? So, well, those officers was down here told us that you all were part monkeys, and your tails would come out at night. And he started laughing. So when he come back to camp, he told us about it. So we all got together and say, let's go over and talk to the officers and tell them, please don't go tell tales on us like this. So we walked over to headquarters, and we told the commanding officer what we want. We'd like to talk to how many officers was around there. You know, we'd like to talk to them, and we told him the story that we heard, and oh, he was real upset. He was real upset. So he called a bunch of officers in and said, these soldiers have got something to tell you. So our master sergeant was in charge, so he told them what the lady had told him downtown in the pub. And so all of the officers denied. Well, I didn't say nothing. 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 So who said it? We don't know. But the master sergeant in charge of us said, please don't go down and tell people different stories about us, you know. We're just like everybody else. So don't go down and tell stories like this, because these people has never seen black people. Only black people they've seen is in the movie. Right. And here we are walking up and down the street laughing and talking, and they wondering what's going on, you know.
Did they eventually, the townspeople, warm up to you guys?
Oh, after that, oh God, you couldn't get over, yeah. You know, well, like I say, you know, the pubs, you go in there, and when we the first few weeks that we were in some city and go to a pub, get a beer, they'd give it to us. But I guess after so many started going in, they couldn't give away so many beers, so they started selling them. Yeah, you had to buy a beer.
How bad was the segregation in the Army?
Well, it was real bad, you know. White Army and the Black Army. That's where it was. We were all separated at all times. We were separated.
So they never did things together?
No. The White Army was on one side, we were on the other side. We never mixed. No.
When Truman got rid of the segregation, was that like a wonderful moment?
It was. It was a wonderful moment.
Yeah.
Because you know, we both armies got the same thing.
Right.
You see, the fighting forces got better treatment than we were working forces. We were the working forces. We didn't fight, see. So they got the better treatment and the better equipment, better of everything. But but it was nice when they did away with segregation and we all moved together, See?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, after World War II ended, did you come back to the States?
Just I come back to the States, yeah, and at the discharge center, they offered you an option of getting out or re-enlisting,
Right.
and staying in the Army. You go from a U.S. Army to a RA Army, which was regular Army officer. See, AU was so civilian. That was the civilian part of the Army.
Right.
RA was regular Army. That was the main Army and everything. So instead of getting out, I called my wife and talked to her, and so she said, re-enlist, stay in the Army, because we were making good money from what I was making in civilian life. Yeah. Going from $12 a week to $800 a month. See, that was something else. Yeah.
Now, you wound up in the Korean War, though.
Yeah, I was in the Korean War, yeah. Yeah.
And you were injured in Korea.
Yeah, I was injured in Korea.
And you were non-combatant also in Korea?
Non-combat in Korea.
Tell me about what happened.
Well, somewhere out there was a bridge was knocked out. So the engineers that works on bridges and build them, they needed some heavy equipment, big 4x4s and long 2x4s and all of that stuff that a normal deuce-and-a-half truck couldn't carry. So we had trailers because all our equipment, bridge, we were a bridge company. We built a bridge across the river or something, So we had trailers that we could load anything on because they were long, and so we had a load 16 trailers loaded with big 4x4s and all kind of equipment to repair a bridge. So after a while down the road, our officer got lost. He didn't know where to go. So we pulled over on the side of the road, and, so he was trying to get information how to get, so the MPs come up. The MPs drove up in their Jeep and said, look, told the officers, said, you better get these equipment out of here, because the enemy is just right over the hill. Once they find you over here, they're going to be sending mortars over here to bum you out, So before that we could get the vehicles turned around, a mortar come over, and just lucky it hit one trailer, knocked it over, and unloaded it. Everything was, all the lumber and everything was down on the ground. So we uprighted the trailer, and we were putting things in there, and that's when I got my hand hurt. So then they carried me to the hospital, field hospital. The MPs did, and they fixed it up with little bandages and stuff, and then sent me to a big hospital downtown in Korea. Sent me to the big hospital, they, I guess, whatever they did, they put me to sleep and fixed it correct, and then the next morning they were airlifting all wounded guys and all to Japan, to the big army hospital in Japan. So I flew over there and was in the hospital. Oh, well, I guess I stayed about 3 months over there.
Did you get to meet any of the Japanese people, just regular civilians of Japan?
Well, they were in there all. They were in the hospital area. Well, they Japanese had a baseball field over there, so we could walk over to the baseball field, and it's, and all Japanese people.
How did they accept the Americans?
Well, I guess in the beginning I can't tell you, because see, the war and everything was to a close.
About 9 years.
So when I got over in Japan and met with some few people who were real nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they treated us real nice. Yeah.
Yeah. You remember your grandparents at all? Your grandparents?
Mine?
Yeah.
No. Never seen them.
Never saw them?
Never did see them.
You ever have hear any stories about them or your great grandparents?
I didn't. The only story that I ever heard was my grandfather. He was a great fiddle player, so he played for all the dances because he played the fiddle. And I understand my father played the banjo, so it was father and son orchestra. And played for all the house parties and everything that they had back in them days. But I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
I was too young.
Yeah. You know what did your dad do for a living?
My dad worked on a farm. We lived on a farm that belonged to a white family, so he worked for the white family. My mother worked in the house for their house, with her housemate.
Yeah. So were you raised on the farm?
I spent probably 7 years on the farm. Yeah. I don't remember too much about the farm.
Yeah.
Before my mother moved us to town,
Yeah. Now, you've lived such a long life. Is there a time in history in this country that really sticks out in your mind as to what was going on? The turbulent 60s, you could probably remember things from the 20s. Is there something that really stands out in your mind?
The only thing that really sticks out and that stays in my mind all the time, was desegregation.
Yeah.
When they black kids could go to the white schools, because the white schools had good kids. The black school had some kind of old building that they had to go in. There wasn't nothing,
Yeah.
And so there's a great story about that. I don't know. We haven't got time for that. We don't need that.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
This is history, man.
In a little town in Tennessee called New Canton, that's a black settlement in the New Canton. It's a black settlement, So one of my sister-in-law, she worked for a white family. And so I don't know how it happened, all that, but anyway, she was telling the lady, that her kids, what kind of school that her kids had to go to and had to walk because the bus didn't pick up black kids. So she said, "What, are you telling me the truth?" She said, "This is the truth. They staying in something that you really wouldn't put an animal in, And she said, "I'm gonna call somebody, and we're gonna see." So I guess she called the superintendent of schools and all, and asked him to come out, So he come to her house, and she told him what the black kids had to go to school in, you know. When all the white kids had nice brick buildings and everything. So they got in a car and they drove up to this little old two-room brick building, you know, and the outhouses, you know, you had to, wasn't no inside toilets or nothing. You had to walk out, one side girls, one side boys. And so I guess the story that I heard now, this is what I heard. I heard that the superintendent of the school asked his mate, "Did you know this was going on?" And he said no, he didn't know. He had never been up in there or anything, so he didn't know. So when they got back to the lady's house that he had talked to, he said, and my sister-in-law was there, Mary, and he said, "Mary, next year, your kids will be in a brand new brick building with everything in it, all running inside. They won't have to go outdoors no more." And sure enough, during the summer, a nice long brick hill building was built with everything in it, you know, toilet inside and everything, nice playground and everything. So that's what I remember. I remember that a long time.
Do you remember the horrible assassinations of John Kennedy, Martin Luther King, and Bobby Kennedy?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I was grown then, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember all of that, yeah.
Yeah. What did those mean to you?
Well, losing great men that was teaching us how to live,
Right.
you know, what we could do, and what we should do, and all of that. So,
Now, you were married 3 times
yeah,
to Mary for 36 years.
yeah,
She passed away.
yes.
And then you were married to Bessie.
Bessie Dorita, yeah,
for
22 years.
22 years. She also passed
She
away.
also passed away.
And then you married a 3rd time to Gwen.
Yes, sir.
When did you meet Gwen?
I met Gwen here, at her mother's house. I met Gwen.
I think you met her. Yeah.
Well, I seen you at church,
Yeah, she met her.
but I met you when y'all invited us down for Easter dinner.
But wasn't my daughter working at Motor Vehicle?
Well, that's how I met her.
Oh, and then
That's how I met your daughter. Was there? Yeah.
who had an idea about inviting you to dinner,
Yeah.
all behind my back.
Well, she knew we didn't have my son. I didn't know at that time, but he had a girlfriend. I didn't know her because he never talked about her at all. You know, when he
You
come and
moved
got
here.
me.
Yeah, you moved here from
Yeah, I moved here from Washington.
and stayed with his stepson.
Well, let me ask you both one last question here. Dana has the one stepson. How many children do you have?
I have one daughter, but four grands.
4 grands and
7
7 great-grandchildren. You know, Dana, what advice do you have for the next generation?
I told them the best thing that I can tell them to get an education.
That's all right.
Learn to do something, you know, because that's the thing that I hear right now. Well, I would have hired them, but they can't do nothing. They don't want to do nothing, and that's true. You know, a lot of boys that I know, they'd rather be on a basketball court out there throwing that basketball than to be in school trying to learn a trade or something
Right.
that they could live on, make some money and live on, you know. But
And Gwen?
I totally agree. And not only that, what I add, and maybe I'm making a mistake by this because maybe the parents are not as stable as they used to be. But basically, if your parents are good, do what your parents say. Some of the stuff that they told me, I didn't accept till
Good
I
luck
was,
with that.
No, till I was 80 years old. And
Right.
I said, There isn't one thing they ever told me that didn't come true. Not one blessed thing. But why did it take so long?
So in other words, when I turn 80 again, my kids will think I'm smart. I'll
Yeah.
revert back to
My
smart
daughter,
again.
even who's 66, says to me, "Oh, you've gotten so smart."
Yeah.
Yeah. And the education too. I would say and I mean, I even wish my parents would die on Friday nights. That's the truth. God forgive me, because they used to make me take piano lessons, and I hadn't practiced, and they never died. And I ended up playing for 7 churches in my lifetime. You know, I think I'm a good musician. You know, they made me take Latin. I hated Latin, but then I succeeded in Italian and Spanish. Everything they said. Plus, they taught me how to cook, how to clean. I hated them. And they were right. They were, Lord, wherever they are, they were right in every single thing they told me.
Well, they're glad to finally hear it from you.
80-some years old, that's when it hit me. And I tell young people that. I said, this is humiliating
Yeah.
to admit.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, I'm going to take that little blurb and I'm going to pass that around to my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have to believe me. They don't have to believe me.
Well, guys, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for listening.